Today we're going to look at problem-solving strategies when finding the area of a trapezoid when we need to find the missing base or the missing height. In this case, we're going to focus on base because finding the missing base is a little bit more of a challenge than finding the missing height. Looking at this problem, the area of a trapezoid is 190 square meters. If the height is 10 meters and the longer base is 22 meters, what is the length of the shorter base? First step we need to make sure we're doing is identifying important information. So we have the area, which is 190. We have the height, which is 10. We have the longer base, which is 22. And our question, what is the length of the shorter base? First step, we always need to write the formula. Well, the formula for the area of a trapezoid is area equals 1/2 of the sum of the bases, which we can identify as base 1 and base 2, times the height. The next step we need to do is to plug in the information that we have. And this may sound silly, but if you actually create blanks like this, it can often help you in organizing your information. So just try it for me. So looking at this, in place of the A, we have the area, which is 190. We keep the half, don't forget that. We have a height of 10. Height is 10. We have a height of 10. We have the longer base of 22. So we'll call that base 1. And then we need the shorter base. Now we have a problem set up so that we can solve it. First, of course, we have multiplication here, so it's easier to take half of 10 than to use the distributive property right away. So we can change the order to, in other words, 1/2 of 10 times the sum of the bases, 22 plus b, which is going to give us 190. So changing that order can help you. So half of 10 is 5, so we have 190 equals 5 times 22 plus b. Now we can use the distributive property, multiply 5 times 22, then multiply 5 times b to get 190 equals 110 plus 5 times b. Remember, distributive property. Then we can subtract 110 from both sides, because now we have a more simplistic algebra problem. And that gives us 80 equals 5 times b. You might already know what 5 times a number is to get 80, but it's always a good idea. We need to divide both sides by 5 to isolate the b. So we get a base of 16 meters. In this case, we had to use the distributive property. In this next problem, we have a multiple choice problem. And there's some ways that you can isolate the correct answers with the multiple choice problem. So we have the same type of problem. The area of a trapezoid is 1,064 square inches. If the height is 28 inches and the longer base is 44 inches, what is the length of the shorter base? Shorter base. Again, rewriting the formula, we remember the area equals half the sum of the bases times the height. Then we can plug in what we know. We can fill in the blanks. So we keep everything the same, and we just fill in the blanks. So we have an area of 1,064. We have a height of 28, so that replaces the h. We have the longer base of 44. And then and we need to know the shorter base. That word shorter is going to give us a little hint. We can look at problem D, and we can see that 448 is bigger than the base of 44. So I know my answer has to be less than 44, so I can isolate this. Next step, we could technically plug in the numbers. That's a lot of numbers to plug in. If we say, okay, 44 plus 29.6, multiply that by 28 and cut it in half. That's a process. But there are some ways you can use a little estimation to help you. So let's simplify. Let's take half of 28. So we have 1064 equals, half of 28 is 14. 14 times 44 plus, and we need the base, so we put a b for a variable. Again, using the distributive property, we have 1064 equals, that is a 4, 14 times 44, which is going to give us 56, and then 56 again, which is going to give us 616. So we have 616, I should do that in a different color, 616 plus 14 times b. Again, subtract 616 from each side, and we get 448 equals 14 times what? In this case, you probably can figure out which is the correct answer. You could always take it to that last step and divide 448 by 14, or you can make a realization, and that is to say, well, let's see what happens if we plug in a number that is reasonable. And using estimation, we can see that the number is probably going to be close to 30. So we can eliminate choice B if you recognize that, and that has to do with your division skills. So we can see if 32 times 14, I would start with the whole number because that way you can avoid the decimal possibly. 32 times 14. Well, we have 12. When we add them together, we get 448. So in this case, I'm using some different strategies to figure out that the correct answer in this case is 32 inches. So I hope that helps you in analyzing your future problems, especially when you have to use the distributive property to figure out a missing base in the area of a trapezoid.